A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this 88th episode of the Together for Education webinars brought to you by Notebook. April 2020, about a year back, we had started this initiative to create a community of educators around the globe. Teachers were quickly coming to terms with the new teaching methods, and Zoom was coming to the fore. Together for Education was set up with the vision of having our educators more hands-on, more used to these new learning methods. Little did we know that a year later, we would have connected with more than 70,000 educators on this platform. For the love and support that you have shown to this initiative, we thank each and every one of you. Today, we look at what is going to happen in maybe a month or two, the post-COVID classrooms. Schools are going to reopen in most parts of the country and other parts of the world. But they're going to open with certain restrictions. Certain protocols will need to be followed. And this is for our own safety. However, they pose massive challenges, both administrative as well as pedagogical, in ensuring that the teaching reaches every student of the class in the same unfettered way that it used to. Today, we have a fantastic panel of speakers lined up for you. So without much ado, let me introduce them to you. Our first speaker today is Mr. Philip Barrett. Mr. Barrett retired as the Deputy Headmaster from the Doon School in Dehradun after 44 years of serving in education across various institutions. Mr. Barrett served the Doon School as Housemaster, Head of Department, Dean of Activities, Dean of Student Welfare, Deputy Headmaster, Second Master, and Acting Headmaster with great distinction. Mr. Barrett also carried out a visioning exercise for the Doon School in the year 2011 through an in-depth study of a number of British public schools and various schools in the US. He also qualified as a leadership trainer at Wellington College, UK in the year 2000. He is also an athlete, an adventurer, and a naturalist. He is also a senior advisor to us at Notebook, and we are privileged to have him on board. Sir, thank you so much for joining today. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Bayu. I hope I'm audible. There's a lot of lightning and thunder outside here. And a good evening to everyone in Notebook, Achin, Abhishek, yourself, and all the rest over there, and our esteemed panelists, as well as all those people who have tuned in. And I forgot Meghna, sorry. So this is an interesting topic because for almost a year, as you just mentioned, we've been struck down by this pandemic and been confined to our homes. But as teachers and students, we've adapted quite well. It's been a time in our lives like no other before. Some of us oldies have lived through some calamities like floods and earthquakes and accidents. We used to have the typhoid and cholera epidemics at one stage. We've even lost loved ones. But the very young, the kids in school today, haven't seen anything quite like this before. And even if the pandemic hasn't affected them directly, as much as it's done the older people, they're very scared to bring it home because there are more vulnerable people at home that they can bring it to. And everyone has suffered in some way or the other. And those who have best adapted to the change are the ones who are going to survive. And that goes for schools as well. Now, one thing I know about this pandemic is that nobody knows enough about it. Everyone from doctors downwards are looking, searching, groping for new evidence. The virus is mutating and the future is uncertain. So no matter what we plan about the post-COVID school, it will still be in the realm of conjecture and guessing the right step forward. I don't think any schools can make long-term plans. I think we just have to, take it step by step and look a little ahead. The other thing that I have learned from this past year is that we need to throw out, get rid of some of these systems, the old systems of education. And we need to keep some, of course, but we need to get rid of all the old ways in learning because we have learned to learn in a new way. And that's what the pandemic has taught us. We don't need schools to learn in a certain way. We don't need physical schools to pass exams, to be knowledgeable, to get data. That we have learned from the pandemic because the online learning that we have imbibed over the last year has been amazing. And while we have learned a lot online at home, we must realize that schools are more than simply four walls and a classroom with boards and desks. It involves movement, teamwork, fun and games, collaboration, group dynamics, making friends, playing on swings in the sandpit, discussing together, arguing, fighting, debating. It is this interaction with friends and teachers that has gone missing in the last year. And the child's brain needs only three things: he needs fuel, it needs oxygen, and it needs movement. And this last aspect has been missing. And therefore, I think it's very important that schools reopen in some way. And I think it was time that schools had to change. This pandemic has just sort of got us out of our complacency, and this inertia has sort of been overcome. Now, some months ago, I was asked in a survey if I would send my kid back to school. And I can tell you that I was in the minority. It was about 40, 60. Today, in another survey, a lot of children are wanting to get back to school, and a lot of parents are also wanting schools to reopen. And I think the reasons for this is because I think they've had enough of online education. Their eyes are hurting, their backs are hurting. Parents are pretty fed up of having these kids at home. There's all sorts of eye problems, obesity, lack of human contact, missing this communication, the play part of learning. And in February, it seemed that restarting of schools was very much on the cards. But now we read about this new variant strain, and parents again getting wary all over again. But if I have to break up this talk into three parts, what do schools need to do in a post-pandemic era? I'll take the first one. The first one is it's to do with social distancing, sanitization, hand washing. All this has to be practiced. There've got to be more soaps, there've got to be more water points, more blow dryers in place. The twin bench system that many schools have has to be thrown out. We can't have two children sitting together. There've got to be more space provided in schools, more open windows, fresh air, circulation of air. Maybe teachers need lapel mics because they also need to be further away and they don't need to shout the whole day. Now, the four-walled classroom, as we have known in the past, has to give way to the more open spaces. And I think Rabindranath Tagore and his Shantiniketan dream, I mean, he must be smiling wherever he is because he didn't see what we are into. But that's the sort of school that's going to thrive now, the Shantiniketan, the open atmosphere. Schools like residential schools, which have space to teach outdoors in amphitheaters, down by the lake, in the forests. Places like the gymnasium, the squash courts, these schools will flourish because if you look at schools in metro areas where there's 60 to a class, I'm wondering where these schools are going to create spaces for children. It's going to be very, very difficult. With 60 in a class, what do you do? Now, some schools, I have visited the school called the Mahendra World College, which is outside Pune. Now, that sort of plan, that sort of architecture is ideally suited for the post-pandemic era because there's so much green space that was built in by the architect. So you can walk out of a class and sit on the lawn. That sort of school is going to flourish. There's going to be much more cleaning of floors, defogging, spraying. Does this mean more staff needed? Testing at the gates and all that. When you see day schools and you see when the bell rings, the crowds at the gate, parents trying to rush in to take out their kids, what's going to happen to that sort of thing? We'll have to organize how children leave school. Parents are not allowed to come into school. The other thing is, of course, there has to be a rescheduling and the re-timetabling of how you're going to get through your curriculum, how you're going to transact your syllabus. And in this, the main thing is we're going to have less people per class. So one way of doing it is to have three classes 3 times a week for half the class, and the other half on the other 3 days. Another way is to have morning and afternoon shifts for half the class. And this blending learning is going to come into it, where half the class are sitting at home doing assignments online, while half are connecting with their teachers and doing actual face-to-face teaching. You could have a system like a round robin, where some of the class is doing dance, the others are doing, let's say, drama, some are doing maths and some are doing English. So you can break the class into, cohorts where you do not have too many together in one place. The flipped classroom and assignments would be really ideally suited to the post-pandemic schools, where much more work will be done online. You just come back to school to show it to your teacher. You might even have CC cameras in the classroom so that children who are sitting at home can actually see what's happening in the class and follow the lesson. You're going to have to use much more of the free space, like the yoga room, the art room, the drama room, the sports facilities. You'll have to throw this open with more furniture. Light furniture, probably furniture with wheels, the plasticky sort of furniture, modern furniture, where you can move around and carry things. Let's not lose momentum that we have gained in the last year with the online learning. I think the online learning, the IT systems, companies like Notebook, they've really come to the rescue of children. And I think they are here to stay. We cannot bid them adieu now. The other things are the psychological changes that school will have to look at. I think we need to understand with empathy what students and teachers have been through and have coped with in the last year. This is a time of adjustment. Often they're not being paid full salaries. Their husbands have been laid off. They've been managing multiple roles, grappling with technology, online assessment, safety protocols, remedial support. They've been having to do new methodologies. They've been facing grumpy headmasters and principals, school owners. There've been new timetable, syllabus, new ways of managing half the class, blended learning. There's been a lot of stress with online teaching. And yet, these teachers have been doing it with a smile on their face, full marks to them. Some teachers are beginning to feel redundant because what passed off as a good teacher 2 years ago may not be the best teacher now in a modern online education system. And so therefore, the older, more experienced teachers who've actually been senior and have had the kudos are now going to have to take and play second fiddle to youngsters who are tech savvy. So this is another thing that heads will have to, handhold the senior teachers, help them along. The teachers need handholding, constant guidance, and help in mastering new online education platforms, because this is going to just be taken forward, become more sophisticated. The other thing is the children. They've also had a lot of problems, abuse at home, facing discrimination because of inequality in the internet gadgetry. They've been depressed, aggressive. A lot of people have lost friends. Some children have had to leave schools because they couldn't pay their fees. They've had to go to new schools. Kids have lost a full year of being the house captain or games captain or star in the drama. They've lost a lot of things that they could have had if schools were open. And so you're going to get a lot of unhappy, frustrated, pent-up children when schools reopen. All these talented kids haven't had the chance to show their talent. These kids have not worked in a team. They haven't been in the classroom. There's been too much internet work. And, the internet also has a dark underbelly. And kids have probably, been watching the wrong stuff. Now, to pull them away from what they used to and put them back in the classroom is going to take some doing. And so the bottom line for heads of schools and boards and principals is empathy and compassion for the children and the teachers who've been through a lot in the last year. So to end, I want to reiterate the 7 important changes that we would need to see in a post-pandemic school. Campus sanitization and cleaning, which is mandatory. We'll have to look at the health and the immunity of these children by supplementing, vitamins, and because prevention is better than cure. And I think we need to look at health now, not just handle illness, but being more not being reactive, but being responding. We'll have to live with masks and hand washing, even though the mask will really remove some of the connect that we have with people. Because when a teacher teaches someone, he needs to look at the student, and there's so much emotion that is shown on the face, but the mask is going to remove that. Then, of course, classroom seating, distancing, and scheduling. There has to be some more vigilance at the gates of schools with thermal imaging, thermometers, and of course to monitor who comes in and who goes out. And last but not least, I think children are worried about the future, and they're worried about their future and the future of their parents. And therefore, I think the heads of schools and teachers need to comfort children, talk to them, bring in confidence, and help them not to panic and to move forward one day at a time. And with that, thank you very much for listening. And I hope I have set the ball rolling, Shabayu, for the next few speakers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Not only did you just set the ball rolling, I think that was smashed across boundary. Some great pointers there. If you are a head of school, a school administrator who's listening in, I think there were quite a few pointers there for you to note down. And I'm sure once we get through today's session, you will find more and more points to jot down. So if you're listening, grabbing a pen and paper might be a very good idea. Well, our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is Achin Bhattacharya. Achin is the founder and CEO at Notebook. A chartered accountant by training, Achin was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. He has worked in India and abroad in various senior capacities in GE, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. He is a fellow of the ICAI and a member of CP Australia. He is also the recipient of the prestigious Indian Achievers Award. Achin is an avid reader and a passionate traveler with keen interests in economics, history, literature, and philosophy. He is a regular speaker at various forums and chambers of commerce and also contributes articles to numerous publications regularly. He is also on the board of some of the most renowned corporates and contributes significantly to their brand strategies. Achin, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Shubha, am I audible?
Yeah, Achin, loud and clear.
It gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you again to today's session on a topic which is not only contemporary and relevant, but something that all of us are eagerly looking forward to. So the other day I was going to a very insightful document by UNESCO. And one thing was very clear, that education is rightfully UNESCO's top priority. Because it's the basic human right and the foundation on which they can build peace and also drive sustainable development. Now, coming to this global health pandemic, which has really shined a harsh light on the vulnerabilities and challenges that we as a race face, I think it has really provided a very clear picture of the existing inequalities, the digital divide, and a clearer picture and a more clearer picture of what steps we need to take. What steps we need to take in order to address the education of more than 1.5 billion students whose learning has been hampered due to school closures. Of course, I'm talking at a global scale, global numbers these are. We cannot forget core principles and known strengths as we face this kind of disruption to economies, societies. It is evident that we cannot return to the world as it was before. So no one is going to press the reset button and we are not going to go back to where we exactly were, more than a year back. We cannot accept the levels of inequality that have been permitted to emerge on our shared planet. Thus, it is important that investment in education infra, mobilization of resources, and support, especially towards underprivileged children in third world countries, particularly with debt cancellation, restructuring, etc. So I'll just give some numbers to share with all of you the magnitude of challenge. And I'll discuss about Africa. the digital divide, the acute digital divide in Africa. Only 11% of learners in sub-Saharan Africa have a household computer, and only 18% have household internet. So 11% with a computer, and slightly higher 18% because many of them must be accessing computers from the phones as well, smartphones. So only 18% left with internet connection. And these numbers, when we benchmark them against global numbers, which are 50% of learners globally having access to computers and 57% having access to internet. So we understand how striking the difference is, how apparent the difference is. Now already we see that this disruption brought on, and the pandemic has really brought this to the surface, the inequalities both within and across countries. Thus, as I was telling you, that we urgently need investment and structural change so that these short-term setbacks do not grow into more larger and long-lasting problems. But sir gave a very, I'll say, very holistic and excellent perspective. And today we have a very eminent panel as well. I'm sure they will dwell on more specific aspects with regard to schooling, given their wealth of experience that we have in the panel today. So I'll keep my deliberation limited to more global and holistic aspects. So I believe that there is a serious risk that this pandemic will actually wipe out several decades of progress. And when I say several decades of progress, I specifically mean progress that we made in terms of addressing poverty, gender equality, because this clearly demonstrates that all of us are so interconnected as a society. Thus, social and economic arrangements mean that the kind of impacts, the virus has impacted one another. But unfortunately, our fellow citizens who are at lower levels of the pyramid, lower levels of the socio-economic pyramid, have undoubtedly been far more impacted. Coming to gender discrimination, I was reading that day, shocking numbers. And of course, when I'm discussing this, I'm discussing about schools, I'm discussing about schools in remote areas, aspirational areas, and different places, be it Latin America, be it Africa, be it parts of South Asia. How, again, coming to gender equality, how girls' education attainment are likely to suffer more greatly, with the risk that many of them may not return to schools post the pandemic. The really shocking facts. Now, undoubtedly, when we discuss that how the pandemic is reshaping education and all aspects of the education system, it is not just the move from classroom to computer screen. That's only one aspect. It tested basic ideas about A, instruction, B, attendance, C, testing, D, funding, and again, very important, E, the role of technology, and the human connections that hold it all together. So all these aspects were tested. And a year later, this rethinking is still underway with a growing sense that some of these changes may really last. In fact, some stakeholders view it as an opportunity to reimagine what our education system will look like. Now, the way I look at it, even in fact that I was reading somewhere, and these are valid concerns. Someone wrote that the genie is out of the bottle, and many think you can get it back in in many respects, this was overdue. So people feel that this digital transformation was long overdue. And now, when students, parents, they've got a taste of it, will things really go back to where it was? But I believe, and we firmly believe this, and pandemic has again gone on to prove this, that most students learn best in person. And in a three-dimensional world, this instruction is led by teachers and teachers alone, surrounded by classmates, where they are comfortable, where that peer-to-peer learning takes place. Beautiful, engaging discussions, knowledge sharing, and activities. Thus, undoubtedly, we cannot deny the fact that, in spite of the fact that real screen time has come in, students have been benefited. Undoubtedly, although schools were closed, schooling went on. And to be fair, digital education contributed in its own way. But having said that, I always feel that it, more than competing, I believe digital and physical needs to complement each other towards a more phygital mode of education. Now, I was reading about what is happening around the world in this particular topic, and a lot of interesting developments I saw. So that day I was reading about some reports in US. Colorado's second largest school system. It's a chain of school, very big chain of school, Jeffco Public Schools. Many of you esteemed educators may be well aware about it. And they recently announced a full-time remote learning program across grade levels. And this is even post-pandemic. So they really plan to take it full-time remote. And the plan is that students would regularly interact with teachers, have mostly live instructions, live classes, not recorded classes, through technology, and stay connected, and only meet teachers, staff members physically once a week. And the objective was that, considering the fact that it's a chain of school, the way they were looking at it, for example, some students who want to opt for a particular subject, say someone wants to take up Portuguese as a second language. It may be difficult for one individual school to provide that choice. But as a chain of schools, and considering the fact that virtual mode of education is being implemented, as a chain of schools, they can pull the students together and conduct a class. Again, I was reading another research report by a non-profit research organization, Rand and Company. They found out that about 2 in 10 schools were adopting and seriously deliberating on these aspects, planning or considering maybe a partial shift, but they're actually actively looking at it. Now, again, but facts also suggest that remote learning is at best a supplement and not a substitute for in-school instruction. The schools really have a great role to play, as also suggested by an eminent educator, and I think very nicely put. This gentleman, the president of American Federation of Teachers, he emphasized that classroom learning is really best for most students, because remote schooling means intense isolation. Zoom fatigue is real. Staring at screen whole day, it can't be an option, right? It doesn't optimize learning outcomes. But again, having said that, we also understand that some aspects of technology definitely needs to come in, and they've already come in. Adoption has happened. This pandemic has fast-tracked certain aspects, also helped a lot of people, be it parents, students, teachers, a lot of people, to step out of our comfort zones, and not only in education, but in all walks of life. All of us have been really forced to step out of our comfort zones and embrace change. So while on one hand, it has been the worst humanitarian crisis, but if you still look at the positive side of it, definitely it has fast-tracked digital adoption, or it has fast-tracked it has really ensured that people are flexible enough to embrace change. Now, uh, I believe that considering this, and again considering this second wave of pandemic that we are looking at now, with new reports coming in, etc., there are concerns. Of course, there are concerns. But then again, I practically really feel for those children who were admitted to school last year, and for first full year of schooling in their lives, they could never really walk into their schools with their school bag. And unfortunately, as a father to two twin sons who are 4 years old now, my children are included in that. So they have been doing their online classes regularly, interacting with the teacher, and they keep on asking me that when will we get to meet her? So that really summarizes, and that really makes me feel that all of us as stakeholders in the education system, be it teachers, parents, students, all of us really eagerly look forward to schools reopening, because their role in society undoubtedly is irreplaceable. So I think these are a few things that I wanted to share. We are a very eminent panel today, and I'm sure that with their wealth of experience, a lot of practical aspects will come in, which will help all of us here. I thank all of you for giving me a patient hearing. Over to you, Shubham.
Thank you, Achin. Thank you for that wonderful presentation and sharing your thoughts on how the post-pandemic classroom would look like. As Achin mentioned, we do have an eminent panel lined up for you, but in just a few minutes, we'll start the discussion. Before that, I will tell you a little bit about Notebook. We at Notebook are an EdTech organization. We make these short, crisp videos tailored to the school curriculum. These videos come in handy in two ways. One, as educators, you can use them inside your classroom. Whether it's online or offline, you can play these videos as an introduction to your session. These short 6-minute videos provide a visual method for the student to grasp the topics better or raise their curiosity levels that makes their learning more fun. As Mr. Bharat mentioned earlier, if we have been able to come to some kind of rescue or have been able to provide some service during this pandemic, we would consider our motivation behind starting Notebook fulfilled. These videos also come in handy much later when the students have to write their exams. They have access to these videos from home on their personal devices, whether it's a laptop or a smartphone or whatever they have access to. They can watch these videos as a quick reminder of what was taught in class that day. I will now play a short sample of one of the Notebook videos before we start the discussion today.
Similarly, a cube has 6 identical square faces. So, its front, side, and top views are all identical squares. A cone has a triangle as front and side views, while the top view is a circle. A sphere has all 3 views as identical circles. Now we know that 2D objects can be joined to form a 3D shape. But is the reverse possible? Can you add a third dimension to a 2D object? The answer is something you probably see every day. It's nothing but the humble cardboard box. Look at the box here. Yes, this box. No, don't worry, I have not lost my mind yet. The shape on the right is something you might see when you take apart a cardboard box. Let us see how we can add the third dimension here. Observe carefully. One by one, we lift each face and fold them inward. Before you know it, we have ended up with a box the shape of a cube. So, you can easily fold your way into the third dimension.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a short clip of one of the Notebook videos. More than 10,000 such videos are available on www.notebook.school should you choose to use them. Well, it is now time to introduce the stellar panel that we have lined up for you today. We are very fortunate to have with us Mrs. Rita P. Taneja, who has been an educationalist with 30 years of experience in school education. She is an educator, principal, teacher trainer, researcher, mentor, and content developer for CBSE, resource person for CBSE and RBSE, QMS lead auditor. She is the treasurer of Jaipur Sahodaya Schools Complex, member of School Management Committee of St. Edmund's School, Subodh Public School, Rambagh, Jaipur, executive member in Department of Science and Technology, Rajasthan, member of the Core Committee on Jaipur Declaration Making Schools Safe for Children in Rajasthan, and an ambassador for Clean India campaign in Jaipur. She has attended international study programs to understand and integrate the teaching pedagogy, resulting in a multidimensional and cross-cultural approach, motivating the school to take a dynamic approach, becoming the International Schools Awardee by the British Council for 3 consecutive terms from 2013 to 2022. Her contribution in the fields of education and social service has won many accolades and felicitations, including the President APJ Abdul Kalam Enlightened Citizen Award, Life Empowerment Award for Schools, Indian Art and Culture, Avantika Honors, Rotary Club, Lions Club, Exceptional Women's Award from Women's Economic Forum. Ma'am, thank you so much for being here. It's a privilege to have you. We also have with us Mrs. Shailja Saxena. She is presently working as a principal at the Mount Litera Z School, Bhaniawala in Dehradun. Teaching is a passion, not just a profession. She is a biology teacher and has been able to create interest in the subject by way of her teaching methods and her interactions with them. As a result, many of her students are doctors. In this era of pandemic situation, she helped her teachers to find various innovative ways to teach students. She has widely traveled across India and the US. Ma'am, thank you so much for being here and making the time today. We also have with us Mr. Dilip Kumar, who was born and brought up in the Bokaro Steel City. He is an MEd and MPhil, holds a degree in English for academic purposes from Amity University and Advanced Language Institute, and a postgraduate diploma in HR Management from Amity University. He is a recipient of Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya National Mission on Teachers and Training Award by MHRD Government of India, Avantika Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Award for Principal, Rashtriya Mahatma Samman 2019, Effective Principles of 2019 chosen by eminent educationist Education Today, started teaching in 1991 from VKV Arunachal Pradesh, worked at the Assam Valley School at the Lawrence School, worked as education officer with Darshan Education Foundation in New Delhi, worked as principal at GD Goenka International School, Mayur School, and Disha College, and is presently the principal at the CMCL Vidya Bharati School in Lumshnong in Meghalaya. Sir, thank you so much for being here today and for gracing this platform. I will stop my share now and we'll switch on the camera so that we can see each other. Once again, thank you so much for being here today. Dilip Kumar sir, Rita ma'am, thank you so much. Shailaja ma'am, we still don't have you on camera. If you could please switch on your camera.
Hello, sir. Shubhayu, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
sir, I can hear you.
Shubhayu, but the camera is not possible, right?
Your camera is not on yet. If you prefer it this way, it's fine with us.
Yeah, I'll prefer this way.
All right, ma'am. Well, I am not very aware of where exactly each of your cities are on this COVID pandemic curve. Let me first come to Shailaja ma'am. Ma'am, when the schools are now about to reopen, I would first ask you exactly what the current situation is. When do you plan to reopen? And what are the protocols that you're planning to keep in place, considering the safety of the children?
Yes, we are planning to open our schools, and 15th April will be the day when the whole of the school classes, all the classes will reopen. So we are starting 9 to 12 is already open, but 1 to other classes also will start from 15th. Now it's a real very happy situation to see my students back, and the teachers are also back now after a year. And a school has to be a place where students feel safe rather. So as a protocol, I think Philip and Achin have already said a lot about it. So all those protocols keeping in mind, that is the thermal screening and various disinfections being places being disinfected, like classrooms or washrooms, and of course washing of hands. But one thing that I have, because in Dehradun the schools are reopening and the students may come, may be allowed to come only at the discretion of the parents. It's not compulsory. So if the parents give their consent, then only the students come. But sometimes the students' parents have given the consent and they don't reach the school. So that is the first thing that I do early in the morning. I have a teacher placed for it, and she'll call the parents to find out whether it is is it they know that their student's child has not reached the school. So this way we can monitor each and every child and make it a safe place. Otherwise, they might go somewhere haywire, God knows. So this is one thing that I have taken up as my duty when the school has reopened. And the usual protocols, as I told you, is disinfecting. We have safe drinking waters. Classrooms are being maintained with social distancing sitting, and we have only about 20 students with the gap of 3 feet or 1 meter each student. And we also have plans to have section wise alternately, so that there is a staggering done, and too much of students or too many teachers are not there in one day. So we will plan out our program as alternate days for sections or maybe for classes. So this is what we are trying to go ahead to as a protocol to keep the students safe. Wearing of mask is of course important, and no borrowing and no lending and no sharing is allowed. Each one should have their own stationery, should have their own water bottles, should have their own tiffins, and they will keep the distance and will not mix with each other too much. This is what we are trying to do. We have safe drinking water, and so the students, they can always fill their water bottle if it is empty, but not take from others. So in case we find that sometimes a student comes from home and starts telling us that no, I have headache or I'm feeling sick, in that case we have an area waiting room which is isolated from the classrooms, and there we place the child, call the parents, and the parents will take the child. Then after that we vacate the classroom, we disinfect the sanitize the classroom, and then send the students back to that class. So this is a lot of activity which we have to carry on as a protocol to keep the children safe in our school. And regarding sports classes also, as I told you, we have 22 students planned in one section, and have two physical education teachers taking them in one period, which will be their sports period. And each of them will have about 10 to 12 students. So they'll be, it is not that all 22 are playing together. So in two fields, we have 10 or 12 students playing there. And I have restricted the games also, sir. And games which in which there is a gap, like badminton or games like hockey, football, I'm not allowing. Cricket can be played, so that the distance can be maintained. Well, these are things that I hope I can do for the students, and encourage the students to get into practice of regular washing hands with soap and water, which is the most important thing, because using sanitizer may also affect their skin. So soap and water is very important. And every now and then the washrooms are disinfected, as I said, and a list of do's and don'ts is put up in each classroom. And this is where they can looking at it, they can remember that okay, what is to be done and what is not to be done. So creating some reminders, like hanging a cutting or a ball cutting with the protocols written on it, so that whenever they put their head up, they can see what is to it will remind them about it. So these are a few of the special protocols like I know. And I'm trying to keep my students safe in our school with the help of the teachers, the security staff, and the others. Thank you, Shubhayu.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you so much for sharing those. From personal experience, the things that students share the most are exam answers. As long as that is invented, I think your students are happy of. Rita ma'am, if I may come to you next. What is the
Thank
situation
you.
in Jaipur like, and are the schools opening up?
Good evening, Shivayu. Good
Good evening,
evening,
ma'am.
everyone on the panel and Team Notebook. Thank you once again for having us here and talking on something which is very relevant to all of us. Yes, as Shailaja ma'am has just elaborated, we are all ready with the SOPs and we have hung them all around. But in Jaipur, there's been a sudden spike in the cases of Corona COVID, and we are not going to open our physical school very soon. We are a center for the board examination also. So we are still going online, and I think I don't see any possibility before July that we will be able to have the children again in the physical school. So it is again online, and our children are being kept engaged in constructive classes. And of course, the global health pandemic has brought a lot of stress, uncertainty, and anxiety amongst all of us. With the physical protocol that has been elaborated, we are trying to keep our children safe. But the moment the cases spike up, it brings a lot of scare, concern, and worry for our students. I think after the COVID is over, other than the physical safe spaces, what we as a school are trying to do is having continuous development program for the teachers. We are trying to hone our life skills. We are trying to train our teachers into the flipped classrooms, blended learning. We are a Microsoft school. So the parameters of assessment have been very micro working has been done upon that. We are trying to involve other ways of assessment in our school. With the CBSE's integration program, we have really tried to make our lessons integrated with art, music, sports, and keeping the classes lively and interesting. After every class, we are having a gap so that the strain is not there, children are engaged. Some classes have been pushed for the evening also, and I think this protocol will continue till July. God willing, things get better, we come to a physical school, otherwise we continue online. And I'm throughout this pandemic, I realized that the parents, they have partnered very well with us. So now we need to be very careful how we cultivate the parent-teacher relationship to make it stronger, so that if this persists, we continue our online education in a better way. Alumni is being roped in again now, so that they also form a very strong network. Even for small assemblies, for example, we've got a paid Zoom platform. We are having the alumni come and talk to the students. So we're trying to connect a human connect somehow with the children with the online classes on, so that the children feel connected, engaged. And I think for now, this is what we are going to do. And of course, safe spaces have been created, sanitizers, stations, buses, thermoguns, everything. We've tried to put the whole protocol into place that whenever children come, as they are coming right now for class 12 practicals, we are following social distancing. And keeping children away is a big task, believe me, because whenever I go, even for the small practical classes, every time we have to go and I find myself just, putting my hands, children stay away. So yes, it's a task for us. The job is going to be more demanding as educators now, and the impact is going to be there on the personal and professional lives. We all have to keep our emotional support and strength in place. We have to encourage the participation of the alumni and the children in the school policies, so that children also become owners of the whatever changes are happening around us. We are this time we have around 15 committees in our school. We have tried to involve children, alumni, parents in all the committees, and we are having active participation from the parents and the children, so that they are equally aware and their perspective towards school remains what we envision it as. It is helping us. Even when the whole city was not able to collect fees, we are thankful, we are lucky that the fees did keep coming in. I don't know what's going to happen the next year, but I think the involvement of the parent community, the alumni and children has really helped us. We've tried to make our teachers attend all possible programs of training in the flipped classroom, in the assessment, and how to now carry forward the hybrid learning in a better way. Because definitely, I think even in the month, even the next session is going to be off and on. For example, if I had a COVID case today, the whole practical had to be shut down and we will be doing it again. So I think this is going to continue for some more time until everybody in the country is vaccinated with the 2 doses. I hope it does some magic. We will have to transform some our assessment patterns also, because definitely the integrity and sanctity of examinations has been shattered with online examinations. To bring them back again in the physical spaces, have examination is also a challenge for all of us. And now children just honestly admit, ma'am, we were not honest about it. So somewhere we have to work upon the children coming back to learning, honestly appearing for the examination, the scare. They are so scared of examination. class 10th is not ready to even appear. They were not ready to appear for pre-board because allotment of the stream in the next year would depend upon the pre-board examination. So they were so scared to even appear in the offline examination. So we really need to work on the emotional balance that the children have somehow lost, including us. We have to really, really be very strong in building the connect with the children. We have started pastoral care with them. We have got mother teachers now who are attending to the children. I think even when we come in the physical sense, it will have to continue. We will have to appoint teachers to look after 10, 20 children in every class, talk to them on regular basis, so that the academic support as well as the social emotional support can be provided to the students. It's a tough, demanding role that I see as an educator for next few months. And every day we change everything. We plan on something, we how we are going to do things, and suddenly things just go astray. So the resilience that I think we'll have to build up, we be more resilient, make our students also aware of the resilience, that adaptability, acceptance to change, acceptance to whatever comes by. And the children are also undergoing a lot of trauma. Their parents are losing jobs. They're all caged up inside the homes. When they come back, we are going to have to deal with the social equations, not to bully each other. We as a school are preparing ourselves more on these issues also. The administrative staff is looking after the protocol of the SOP of the safety of physical spaces, hygiene of our children. They are all into it. We are trying to map the learning outcomes, because online, the parents, they come and they really appreciate. They say the teachers have done a wonderful job past year in teaching the students. But when the videos not on, the children are not attending, all of them. So we've got so many issues to deal with. And the learning gap in some of the children is a big challenge, which I, as a principal, am scared of, because the junior children, with all the efforts of the teachers in trying to convert the whole home into a learning lab, they have not, the learning loss has been there. Learning gaps are going to be there. I'm more concerned about these issues, because definitely when a child is not well, we have the infirmary, we have the resident doctor, they will look after them. But I think in the classes, the teachers will have a more challenging job, because the past 1 year has been a very mixed one. The children who were self-motivated, they've done well. They've taken in the learning the way it was, I think, guided, facilitated by the teachers. But there are children who have, I think, lost their way somewhere, and we have to bring them back. I'm more worried about that. And we'll have to make education now, of course, accessible. It's the WhatsApp modules will not stop for another year. I think we'll have to provide them some kind of online support always throughout the year. And we'll have to map them whether they are able to learn. Some kind of inclusive education has to be brought in for all. This year we have realized that yes, children are different learners. They have different learning styles. They have different rate of learning, and how they're able to retain, recall. For the first time, I think education has really happened for teachers. We've come to know how to be a good teacher, how to catch the attention of the children. We've tried every trick in the trade and whatever we learned to have good classes, good engaging classes, assessments, integration. The new education policy has come in. We're trying to keep the learning joyful for our little ones, trying to have a lot of things have gone in this year. I know as a part of the teacher fraternity in my city, we've done a lot, and I'm quite proud that yes, we have tried to cater to the needs of the learners. But next year, I don't know how it is going to be. We are trying our level best as an educator to keep up with the pace of the change that is coming by every day. I hope I, as a principal, I, as a teacher, can cater to the needs of my children. I hope my perspective keeps strong. I'm able to be able to cater to the needs of the new learner. The learners also now have changed. They have more access to knowledge than ever before. We have to now smarten up, hone our life skills and our educational skills to be able to keep up. As Achin just said, that teachers now have a tougher job because technology has stepped in. And in every field possible, with companies like yourself, you have made things so much easier. There are other companies which are coming up which are much better than us. as teachers, we have to now keep pace, and the competition is not just with other schools or other teachers. It is the commercial companies who have come up with much more R&D, with much more beautiful pictures to attract to. So for me, the competition is not the other schools. It is Vedantu, Byju's, Notebook, all these bigger companies who have bigger infrastructure than us. But I'm sure the teachers are going to rise up. Last year, when we all shut down, the teachers rose to the occasion and were able to cater. I'm sure we'll continue doing a good job when the children come back to us. We will be able to use our available resources, keep a positive perspective, and we will have to now stop pushing the children also a little bit, give them space as human beings, respect them emotionally, respect where we need to stop and let them be disengaged from learning, get them back to learn. We have to teach our children to recognize change, and we have to keep the lines of communication open for a change. I think pandemic has taught us that whatever we learned in our BEds and the education policies has actually come into play, and we have to keep it up so that we are able to bring forward the future generation independent learners uh, that we want our children to be. So lots to be done, miles and miles to go before I rest. So it's going to be a tough job, but we are ready for it. I feel my teachers and a school, a DPS as a school is preparing well for post-COVID classes, trying to keep abreast, rest, and let us see what future holds for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Sorry to hear that you're not going to be opening right away. If Notebook can be of any help in the process, please do let us know. We are always here to help. And also,
Definitely.
one small clarification: we are never a competitor for the school. We exist as a teaching aid. The
I
teacher
know.
is core to our existence,
I
right?
know.
We are somewhere beside the teacher, just helping them along.
Yes, no, children have had a lot of access, and with the videos and the clips that we have now available, of course, teaching has become very easy. If it was not for the technology, I think the schools, the brick and mortar schools were closed, and education would have also closed. So thanks to technology that we were able to carry on education with whatever gaps, but definitely education has been there. The I think the evidence is that board exams are happening. The board is confident, and the children are doing pretty well in the practical examinations also. The vivas is showing that no, our energies have not gone to a waste. And in fact, for the senior classes, they have got a lot of time to do self-study. Definitely, when they come to school, a lot of activities, a lot of comprehensive education is given. But yes, the subject enrichment activities like field trips and other, the actual interaction, the peer group, that has gone missing. And that is going to have a huge impact on the psyche of the children also. But definitely, without technology, it would have been, I think, biggest loss ever for the mankind. That whole year would have gone to a waste. So thanks to technology, we are standing straight. We are here with our children, and I think somewhere the connect between the school and the home has strengthened with the pandemic. It has strengthened. We have tried to appreciate the work of the teachers. Parents also now appreciate the work of the teachers. I think schools have risen in respect. Of course, there have been issues, but schools have risen in this pandemic, and the parents never had partnered with schools in learning of their own children, and that is happening. I think that's a beautiful change which has come. I hope we come back to our physical spaces very soon. I'm missing the children. I'm sure all educators here feel the same.
Right, ma'am. Thank you. Mr. Dilip Kumar, sir, what's the situation like in Meghalaya? Is the second wave imminent? Is it much better than the rest of the country? And so, what are the protocols that you are planning to have? So, you're on mute. Sir, you have to unmute yourself, please.
Namaste.
Namaste, sir.
Namaste to all the panelists, organizers of Notebook, and the participants. I fully agree with ma'am that it is not post-COVID school. Still, COVID is not over. because you have seen not only in Jaipur but other places, the situation is worsening. And what I have witnessed, there is huge learning gap which is prevalent. In one school, they conduct here session January to December. They called all the parent, handed over question paper and answer also that please complete all these, and after 2 days submit it to school and everybody will be promoted accordingly. There is another school which conducts term 1 examination online and term 2 examination they conduct offline, and they do not accept, they do not believe that same student's performance, oh that was in online, no, we don't accept. So these two situations I have just narrated. There are many situations, there is huge learning gap. There is a school which Mr. Philip mentioned about UWC Mahindra United in Paul, and there is a school in Jaipur DPS. These elite schools, it has got, it's a wonderful infrastructure they have, and they are doing a great job. And what ma'am mentioned, sir mentioned about environmental concern, and ma'am mentioned about how to use this time for this pedagogical leader and teacher training. That was wonderful thing. And I fully agree that this was the best time for the teachers to get them trained. And it has become mandatory, and two things is coming similarly. One is the threat COVID, another is national education policy with lot of hopes, joy for learning, lot of positive aspects we have got. But in countryside, these schools which is run by government organization and which is maximum in number, and they are having problem with the infrastructure, number of teachers. Almost sometime teacher comes, sometime a student comes. And I told you, I gave you example that how the assessment takes place. So how the assessment will take place and how teachers will include in teaching learning. You see, notebook lessons I have seen, these are wonderful lessons. Clarity is there. We can use, I think so, if my class is also there, I cannot prepare that well class. I always take help from your notebook classes. It really prepares. And I have tried with a student in the trial version which you offered, because we could not afford. So these type of things, what is happening, this learning gap and assessment, what we have done, one teacher came, he is from central school, he was very happy that last year CBSE gave marks for those papers which a student could not write, and that is why my assessment was better than if a student would have written. So first thing, the challenge is of assessment throughout the country, and authentic assessment. Can you have something more than the present? Can you go for the assessment where it is accepted, it is authentic, and it is done in a way which the school themselves, they believe that, okay, if it is online also, it is accredited, it is believed, it is authentic. So this is another problem. We will be starting, we are planning to start, touch wood, hope for the best. We are planning to start from 12th and in phase wise. And we have also decided to make classroom, divide the classroom into subgroups. And teachers are the soul. So yes, we talk to the teacher, and teachers are now focusing on 5 important aspects which is in every lesson. They look for creative aspects. They go for the collaborative activities. They look for the critical activities. They are also talking now. They started talking about design thinking. And there is a very popular thing which CBSE has interested, art integration in all the subjects or value. So these 5 components, with these we are coming. But at times we see that there are exams going on throughout the country. So we also decided to, okay, we will also have offline examination. But there are schools where they cannot open. But at times I get confused when I get a letter that if a teacher is stuck somewhere or teacher has left the organization and teacher is not here, the principal will be fined personally 50,000 rupees by the board. I am at a loss to understand the mindset of people when they will come out from the tunnel vision they have. When we are talking about joyful learning, happy classrooms, innovation in the classrooms, we are just trying to compete and bringing the best. And then again, we are going for the traditional way. Can you make more comfortable? Okay, if external examiner is not available or internal examiner is not, can we go online? This online, this is the gift of COVID, that lot of things has happened. Our teacher are trained and lot of solutions are coming. But we have to accept, not at this level, the person who are policy maker, not only for a speech and new education policy, but the person who are responsible or holding the senior post in board, they must accept, they must encourage all the initiatives which is really helping and enhancing the learning activities among us, teacher, student, broader family. So this is the thing I just wanted to see. Yes, we are starting, but we have to keep, and all those people have to come up. They always remember that huge number of schools are government schools. There are schools in countryside, and we need to focus on these schools as part of CSR, or as part of, you also need to, everybody need to do something for these schools where children whole year they were wandering, they were just willing to come to school. So if they don't allow to open the school on 12th, what we are going to do? We are allowing the student to visit in a small group, to come and see the classrooms, meet their teachers, and that is allowed. So we are opening from 12th, whether it is allowed or not. Thank you.
Wonderful, sir. And all the best for opening on 12th. I do hope that most of your students will turn up. Just one thing that I wanted to tell everybody on this platform. We at Notebook make it our mission to ensure that if you want to use online learning, if you find notebook content useful, affordability will not be a barrier. If you feel that you can use our content successfully in your school or with your students, we are more than happy to help. Right? Just wanted to put that out there. Rita ma'am, thank you, sir. Rita ma'am, let me come back to you. On the point of the parents, you said that over the last 1 year, you have collaborated greatly. And despite a spike, what we're realizing is people, especially those employed in the private sector, will not have their offices shut down. Most companies which had shut down initially during lockdown 1 realize that a complete shutdown of a company is not commercially viable. So now a lot of these parents who have become core to the whole learning process are not going to go back to their offices, and the child is going to attend classes from their homes. How do you envision this situation working out now?
I think in the whole past year, children have learned how to handle the devices. enough for their own learning. Definitely, we are going to open up from July. This is the April with the cases really rising from past few days. And because one child was found COVID in my own school, so we had to shut down. But definitely from July onwards, we hope everything will be all well and we will have our physical school. So we will try, as per the government guidelines, to call the children in the state of Rajasthan. Till class 9, we are prohibited to call children right now. And because we have this year two 10s and two 12s right now, so to cut the confusion, we were not calling anybody, and remedials and the practical classes are going on for the board going classes. So definitely the whole focus of my school is upon getting the board going classes to attempt the boards in the best way possible. So our focus right now is calling the children who are going to appear for the board examination right now so that they are prepared well. And then from July onwards, we start concentrating again upon our children, the whole school. And once the school opens, the buses will be going, they'll pick up the children, and in the buses also, we have made the protocols are ready. The SOPs have been shared with the parents. And as soon as the things get back to normal in Jaipur, we will reopen our school for physical. But yes, right now I'm focusing totally upon the board going classes. But small children will have problem because they cannot handle the devices on their own, especially the pre-primary 1 and 2. That is the classes where they need the parents to guide them, to facilitate them in their learning, even with the devices on. But senior children from class 3 onwards are able to work on the laptops, desktops, iPads, and phones on their own. So that is not a problem. They have got used to submitting their homeworks online. The assessments, we are working on the Google Forms and the Microsoft Forms. So now, by now, the whole year has been online. They are quite used to it. They are quite comfortable with it. Now, the only thing is that we as teachers, if it goes on online, we have to plan our examination and assessment in such a manner that children really study. They do the self learning and they are able to gain the knowledge that is being given by the teachers. Now we have to now plan our assessments in such a way that children are not only restricted to mugging up and cramming the material, but they actually understand and they're able to apply their knowledge. So in the senior classes, it will be easy because case studies can be formulated, especially in the commerce and the senior section. But in the junior section, of course, we cannot do away with the traditional testing throughout. But yes, a lot of work can be done in creativity, and with the integration of the projects, it is being done. The children are asked to record themselves while reciting the lesson, or some kind of projects have been made up where children have to record themselves doing some activity. So at least we are making sure that children have gone through the content of the chapters and the lessons. Whenever they do some activity and they show it to us on the camera, we know that at least the child has read through the entire lesson. So that is a big solace that at least they are learning. They may not be retaining the learning, but at least they are going through the textbooks. So the knowledge gap has been reduced. And yes, of course, they need to learn and they need to reproduce their whatever they have learned for their future progress. But we have tried to somehow map the learning and make the learning objectives real. We are not being very ambitious. We have kept our goals very small, and we are working very. We are taking very small baby steps towards making our children comfortable, giving them spaced out learning so they're not stressed out. And even if when the parents are not there, we are ready to conduct classes early in the morning or late in the evenings. That is how we have been working, though a proper timetable has been managed throughout the year. We hope that very soon, when children come back, initially we will have to re-accommodate every child in a physical space, physically, hygienic, and even the mentally, socially also they will have to learn. Because when the children are at home, I don't think they're interacting the way they used to do, and the etiquettes, the respect for each other, not sharing with each other. Again, we have to bring them up. We have to groom up a lot of things. So we are mentally prepared. Our lesson planning, our everything, the pedagogy is now stressed upon rehabilitating the children in school. We are working on that, and I hope when children come back, they are more flexible than us, or we are doing a little bit of overthinking, they will adapt beautifully well. Because when I see children coming for my practicals, that is the senior classes, they are doing beautifully well. The collaboration is there, they are working together. I hope the transition that was very smooth when we took to online from offline was quite smooth. I hope the transition back to physical classes also will be as smooth. But yes, as teachers, we'll have to be alert. We will have to make sure that our children are able to cope up with this transition naturally and smoothly and seamlessly. And we are prepared for it. Hopefully, we will
Wonderful,
do.
ma'am. Wonderful to hear about that. Shailaja, ma'am, if I may come to you with the same question. Over the last 1 year, the parents have become more involved in their children's learning. Do you see that changing? Shailaja, ma'am, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you now.
Huh. Well, you're right. Now, parents they are more involved in the teaching of their children because they are at home, and obviously, when online teaching is going on, one of the parent is always there, and especially with the younger children like class 1 to 5 and the pre-primary, so they are more involved. And what I feel is that parents are actually the first teachers, and when the child starts going to school, what he feels is the lady in the school is a teacher and lady at home is a mother. So he starts discriminating the two. But actually, the parents, they have taken up a good job, and because they were at home and they could do that. So due to this pandemic situation of corona, parents have become more involved in their children's activity, what I feel is. And I've got the feedback also from the parents, because we just had a meeting with the parents regarding reopening of the school. So um, their studies, their activities, their sports, or whatever cultural activities, the parents have been telling us that they were involved in all this. And especially now, if we come back to the child's education, online education, so we have been getting feedback that my teachers have done a good job. And in case they find, some of them found that it was not done properly, like they want a change. So we took the feedback for the better, and it was done the way some innovative ideas or creative ideas were put forward, and we did that. So what I feel is that whether it is offline or online, I want that the parents should be involved, because they are the stakeholders. It'll help us also to improve. Now, what method is being used, if their child is understanding or not, they are the best ones to tell us. So when we receive a feedback from the parents, as we had in the PTM, so we try to change the method of teaching and be more innovative and more creative, and of course put in more work and put in all our efforts. As ma'am already said, our educational skill, our B.Ed skill, and everything came into it, and we brought in the change. Information is available on the digital media. That's right. But what I feel is, it is not possible that all will comprehend the concept or the idea. And that is where a teacher is required. So we often gave them, we were using notebook, of course, and we often gave them for homework to see the short videos, and then online we could discuss the idea or the concept with the students. So that was where the teacher steps in. So we teachers are working to develop a good future citizens, and I feel parent involvement has been a good sign to move forward on this road. So I take up the feedback from the parents and as a challenge, and discuss it with the teachers to improve things. I'm lucky to have a good team of staff members always working ahead, be it online or be it offline. And as we all know, last year, all of a sudden in a day, we were told to close down the school, and we had no idea what to do, what not to do, but still we did it. And that is great. So what I feel is that parents, of course, have to be involved. And it is good because what I feel is a year or 2 years back, the parents were not so involved. They only came on the PTM day, taking off from their office or from their work, and then came up with the for the meeting, saw the marks, and went away. But now there was a different kind of PTM. So we all had to sit down with the teachers and the parents and discuss what ideas we could put in or what was needed to do more to implement the online teaching, blending the online teaching with the offline teaching, and the old traditional way and the new methods. It is a real tough job for us, but we are doing it. Thank you.
I think the pandemic has brought, rather ushered in a revolution in the field of education in India, and it has taken us quite forward in all the dimensions of education. I know with all
You're
the
right, ma'am.
parents for a change have really supported the school in the learning, and I hope it continues the partnership, the feedback that we are doing. Teachers have really worked hard, and parents have supported them in the learning. They're concerned about the children, and they have been there with us. So they have really helped the children to do so many experiments, the simulated learning, and I could see children, standing in the kitchen boiling water and seeing the evaporation, the volume. So many things were happening. Manners were taught with a real dining table. Small children, they learned the table etiquettes when. So nice things have happened. I just hope it continues now. The pandemic should end as soon as possible. It has ruined everybody's lives, but in education there have been very good things which have come. I hope we build upon what we have learned, and we don't forget that when we go back to our physical school. We remember how it was and how we handled each other, the teachers, the colleagues, the seniors, the juniors, the IT managers, the counselors. We all really worked together. I hope we build upon whatever we have learned in these challenging, unprecedented times, and we continue to do a better job. Education has really uh, it has taken a good turn, and I hope these partnerships that have built up, they continue. That is my only, I think, hope in all this negativity that is all around us. That okay, let there be something good for the children. Let them be the future learners. The way we were taught, every child in Jaipur wants to go out of Jaipur to learn because somewhere they feel that hands-on learning is not being given to them. Children don't want to do higher education in India. So I hope with all the changes that have come now, we build upon it and we really change the way we teach our children. We give them independence, we let them explore, we actually make the experiential projects happen in our schools. So children they're really learning. They're not just cramming up things and learning for examination. They really learn, they really want to learn and do something good. Beautiful children have written such nice poems, they have written articles. The print media has supported them by publishing the articles. So the kind of impetus that has been given to education as whole, I hope it continues. That's about all. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, ma'am. Dilip Kumar sir, if I may come to you with the same question. Do you have a similar experience with your parents?
Explain me. I was just on another call. Sorry for
No
that.
problem, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, we said that over the last 1 year,
Yeah.
the parents have become a part of the whole teaching learning process, right? They have been
Yes.
sitting in the room when the online classes were going on. Do you
Yes.
see that changing going forward? Because now that they are going to go back to their jobs, students are going to go back to school.
Yeah. Here it's a small township, and everybody we stay together. So at times, not in huge, small groups, we were interacting with we all were staying together. So yes, parents are more concerned, and that there is another thing. Whatever you give in school, they are attracted towards that. There must be tuition. It has become a fashion. So tuition fashion is there. So during COVID also, they were trying. Our teachers do not go for tuitions, but yes, they manage with some people working here and there. So parents were involved. Some parents were involved. Some parents they are busy with their job. So yes, parental side only concern is they are always depending on the school. They are talking about this from the teachers. But since it is small community, we teachers are also their parent, a student's parent. So we played the parent role during COVID also, because counseling and all other things is ongoing. It's ongoing. We have not stopped. So over online classes, over tele-counseling, all these things were on. So we are in touch with that. But directly parents were not involved in teaching learning process for bigger group. Yes, they may be concerned with their own ward, but not with the school and community or classroom. It was so we were playing, teachers were playing as a teacher as well as a parent for the student. They were working as a counselor. So yes, it was from our side. So we were playing both the roles. But I have not seen any specific parent who offered that, okay, I will come forward and I will take these things. It
This is
has,
very interesting, particularly these township schools. Sir, you enjoy the kind of community support that other big city schools can only dream of. And where
yeah,
most city schools would talk about how the parents sitting in the room become part of the teaching process. You have
yeah.
completely flipped that, and the teachers are now going beyond the teaching duties and almost becoming second parents in a very, very true sense of the word.
Yeah, so we what we did now, made that, okay, it is closed, school is closed, we cannot run the classes, but we had a small visits in small groups. 4 or 5 students will come, and then all the sanitization process and all these protocols we will maintain. They will go to their classroom, they will just see their teacher and come back. So they were very happy. So, and for some sort of program, some competition, some dance, small groups we were calling. We have not stopped that. And that is what is happening in other places, that, okay, you are calling only for the board class student. Here what was happening, we were calling for the smaller student. Okay, the child who joined in nursery or LKG or UKG, they also want to see the school, and they were very happy when they came to school. So yeah, it was opportunity, but only thing was, it was not, they were not invited as a class. They were invited in small groups, 2 or 3 parents in subgroups. They can visit the school and meet the teacher, and it was on a weekly sort of thing. It was not on regular basis, or it was in between. There was a gap. After 2 days, you can come. So the schedule was, and WhatsApp group has helped a lot during this time. So a synchronized method. We were using Zoom classes, but at the same time, in addition to Zoom, and we tried. The teacher got trained when it came. Teacher got trained in very short span of time, and yeah, Google Forms, all these things we tried, but we felt that yes, they must come to school, and they must interact with teachers. So teacher and school, whatever is there, whatever material, whatever support, these are all support, but the real soul is teacher for the school. They are the soul of the school. And school children, they are not happy until unless they are not joyful. If you just put in front of the camera and online classes, so they are not very satisfied, that they want at least. So you can make alternative, 3 days online classes, and 3 days you give them opportunity to visit to school, or there must be some blended sort of learning, and you must offer these type of things. So yes, things are hopefully changing, and all these things, whatever has come, Baidu notebook, these are all yeah, good support material. And particularly notebook, I tell them that yes, they must see the lessons the so beautifully. I don't see anywhere else. There may be, so the modulation and all the topics, it is very nicely done. I use this for my social science classes, and initially I was using that time notebook. I have not purchased, but when you just offered it, that time I used, and our students also, parents also, they liked it very much.
That is
So
wonderful, sir. No need to purchase. If you find it useful, please use it and use it with your students. We are perfectly happy to do that.
Yeah,
Thank you so
and
much.
it is always a delight to interact with or listen to Mr. Philip Barrett. They are institution in themselves. Mr. Philip Barrett comes, it's always a delight to, and you all, Achin and Philip, said the things, everything, whatever we have done, they combine everything and they put the things in right direction. And this is also another achievement that you give the opportunity to interact. And many educators, they every time they come and they talk about that. So here also is the platform. Not only that you are limited for your classroom and other thing, but you are giving us also opportunity to interact with and to know about some of the other educationists, Saija ma'am, Rita ma'am. They are doing a great job. So what is my benefit takeaway from this? That I am getting a lot of best practices from them, and I am getting a lot of ideas from this place when I listen Mr. Philip Barrett and Achin Bhattacharjee and having the big corporate role they have come. So this is the great service they are doing, and this is a great opportunity for me and educationists like me, that we are the teacher first. That is the feeling. I'm teacher first. So yes, please. I have attended many. My teachers they attend here. So please continue this. You might have done 100, this sort of things. So if people just go through that, they can understand really that what is happening in the field of education in India. They can easily understand the scenario. And during that COVID time, what is said, na Dheeraj Dharma Mitra Nari Apad Kal Parikshachari, in difficult time, somebody comes to support. So Notebook and other organization, whoever has come to support. So this is a great philanthropy job also. And when you said that money is not till you can utilize it for learning, that is the great thing. That if you offer this, this is the best thing one can. So it is also a CSR opportunity. It is also a philanthropic work you are doing, and it's a educational field. So I am very much thankful to all of you, and particularly participant who came here. And I got a call, so that is why I was not here for 3 minutes. So
No problem, sir, and thank you. Thank you so much for your kind words. This entire initiative has been the greatest learning that we could have had in the field of education. For the paucity of time, we'll have to close the discussion here. I will now invite Achin for the vote of thanks, but once again, thank you all for making the time to be here today. Achin, you have quite a bit to thank for, so over to you.
So I think really a very good session we had, undoubtedly. A very informative discussion, and great to see so many perspectives coming in, and very, I'll say entire 360 degree we have covered. Shalay ma'am, I think you really made a very good point when you said that parents are the first teachers. And also, I think as stakeholders, really their feedback is important, undoubtedly, no doubt about it. I completely agree with you on that.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome, ma'am. Pleasure is all ours. And really thank you for your time and great deliberation. Rita, ma'am, I think my takeaway from your deliberation, few very key points that you touched upon. I think very beautifully you explained that the fact that you are taking small steps towards spaced out learning in order to ensure the students are not stressed. And initiatives like flexible timings, either early in the morning or late in the evening, so that working parents, they can also lend a helping hand. And also various other protocols like bus protocols, etc., in order to ensure that children's safety is kept in mind. So I think I really like that bit of activity-based learning, activities being performed, in order to ensure that children really demonstrate their conceptual clarity on a particular topic, which of course is the need of the hour. So I really compliment you for this, very thought-provoking. Thank you indeed. Dilip sir, again, I think some very good points you made, and also thank you for your feedback. about Notebook. Yes, at Notebook, it has been our continuous endeavor to try and raise the bar and improve. And I think wherever we are today, it is also because of the kind of feedback that we have been getting from eminent educators like you. So many of them, we get so many phone calls, so many mails, people coming in volunteering with great suggestions, which has really helped us to improve with each passing day. So today, wherever we are, it's a product of contribution from so many people, from so many eminent educators, feedback from children, and also what we have seen over last 1 year, feedback from parents, and that we were discussing, that parents being so much actively engaged in the children's education, and that we've really seen during last 7-8 months. And in fact, I tell you, some of these feedback calls, when we discuss, and personally, I always make it a point to take at least some calls, because I also want to understand what's actually happening. So when I speak to some of them, at times when I see them referring to videos so seamlessly, so I really, it gives me great pleasure. So for instance, the other day I was talking to someone, and the gentleman very seamlessly, he was talking about one particular lesson, and a great feedback. He himself is in education, so very good feedback. And then seamlessly he switched to a different subject and referred a different video. So I understood that yes, lot of effort is going in, and parents also accompanying their children. So it feels really great to see this. So I think very nice session we had. I thank all of you for your time. I also thank members of our esteemed audience for their time today. And of course, with your support, we have been able to take Together for Education webinar from strength to strength. And I look forward to your continued support in the days to come. Thank you, take care, and goodbye.
Oh, we go to boy.